So, I watched Komi Can't Communicate. And oh my god, what an absolutely lovely show. It is charming, wondrous, and fantastic, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys about it. But before we do that, let's do some housekeeping. Essentially, in this video, we're going to be talking about a Season 2 release date. We're also going to be talking about the first season and just kind of gushing about the wonder of it. And in a second here, I'm going to tell you guys about it and try to entice you guys to watch it, because this one I absolutely think you guys should at the very least test out. It's on Netflix, so most people have easy access to it, and it is just lovely. But first things first, this right here, boys, read it and weep. Komi Can't Communicate Season 2 release date is happening on April 7th, 2022. Now, we do not know if that is going to come with a dub. The dub is now dubbed on Netflix, and I could see them kind of working with them more tightly, especially with the absurd amount of success of this series. This has been on Netflix's like #1 watched in the world kind of list. So probably most definitely going to have a Season 2 or 3 probably and onward, and they dubbed the first season relatively quickly. So with the success of it, it would just make sense that they would try to dub it with Season 2 as soon as it launched. So I wouldn't be surprised if as soon as Season 2 airs, you'd be able to get the episode. So I think I'm not sure if they release them all at once or one by one, but you will need a Netflix account in order to actually watch Season 2 on April. So that's something to note. So Season 2 confirmed. So if you guys are as in love with the series as I am after this one season, we got more coming, baby. Actually pretty soon here, in a couple months, which will be awesome. I wonder if they're going to drip feed that out or go one by one. But before we get into my overall thoughts, I just want to talk to you guys about the wonder of the show, the weird, quirky instances and all that stuff. Before that, there's a lot of people who check out these videos specifically just to see if it's something that they would enjoy, if it has themes that they are interested in and kind of tends to be what they're drawn to. So let's get into it. Komi Can't Communicate is a incredibly charming show. It is kind of like your slice of life kind of idea, but it does things that are different enough. It almost does the thing where it plays with tropes but subverts your expectations just enough to where it's fun. Also, it doesn't have a lot of like conflict for conflict's sake. In fact, I think it's like no conflicts really in the show. It's just a very good time that you'll be like, holy shit, I just burned 3 hours binging half of the season, because it's just so smooth. It's like comfort food. It's cozy. It's warm. It's easy to watch. But anyways, the whole idea of what Komi Can't Communicate is it's kind of like a comedy slice of life school situation, specifically around kind of like people who struggle with communication, introversion, anxiety disorder, those kinds of things, and in various different perceptions of that. You know, some people are innately gifted with being able to really talk to people and talk to anybody. Some people are really gifted with kind of being able to deeply understand people without needing to completely understand them, just kind of pick up on tiny subliminal things to understand their emotional pivots. Some people are really into the things they're into, ninjas and knights and stuff. Some people have self-esteem issues, basically self-worth issues. Some people have obsessive disorders, essentially, and yeah, all of these characters in the show have these quirks, let's call them, and some ratchet it up to like, no, this is a psychotic level of like, you need help, but we're gonna make it fun because it's a show. And then the whole premise of the show follows Komi, who desperately can't communicate with people, but desperately wants to. And the whole subline of the show is that a lot of people who may have introversion, who may have anxiety disorder, who may have proclivity for depression, people who may have a difference of interest, like really liking maybe cringe Linkin Park, but awesome, but whatever, like anime specific genre of niche, whatever. People who may have specific interests, people who may have self-esteem issues. It doesn't matter, like, no matter the kind of proclivity or thing that you were given, it doesn't mean that people don't want to form long-lasting relationships, kinship, friendships, do things, experience the world, all of those things. So just because someone has anxiety or is an introvert doesn't mean they don't want to hang out with their friends or experience a fun time. It just means that their energy level gets depleted when being around people. And all of these kind of cool premises to characters. But anyways, the core essence of the show is following this girl Komi who can't communicate, and specifically following the guy that is kind of the lens onto the world. And he is gifted innately with being able to kind of pick up on situations. So read the room is his thing. And they're kind of doing this within the show, a little spoiler, but they're kind of making him like a weird level of like, he always talks about himself as being like the average Joe that's not special at all, classic anime nonsense. But anyways, like, I'm not special, whatever. Meanwhile, he's able to like fundamentally read everybody's mind, and completely know like how to perfectly adjust the situation to where it all works out without him having to superimpose himself a lot of the time. Like he tends to like step back and kind of let things happen, but when they start to go haywire, you can tell that he's like at a moment's notice ready to pivot and adjust, or help, or whatever, right? Now, if that's not a good enough sell for you guys, basically, by the way, it's just him and Komi going through the encounters of daily school life, inching their way of basically trying to get Komi 100 friends. Because again, the whole idea is just because someone can't communicate doesn't mean they don't want to have long, loving relationships with a vast variety of friends. And if you can't communicate with someone, then that's kind of a hard wall to get past. But the main character is kind of helping her do that. Now, of course, with this being an anime and a goofy show, Komi is like perfect in every sense of the word. I was in the back of my head, I was laughing the whole time because I'm like, what if you were just ugly, annoying, had shitty people skills, couldn't talk to anybody? It's just like, yeah. What is it? No one has like this equilibrium where like there's like a certain level of I can't communicate, but I'm perfect. You know what I mean? So brutal and sadness aside of reality, that's kind of the premise. So of course things tend to like happen for her randomly, with spontaneity, that kind of thing. But to compare this show to other shows that I think if you've seen and you might like, this show very much has, in my opinion, the vibe of a show that I love dearly, called The Disastrous Life of Psyche K. Now, it's not in any way as like outlandish as Psyche K having like god tier, psychic powers and kind of just the world fucking with him. It almost seems like Psyche K is a god, and actual God is like throwing bullshit his way just to kind of fuck with him the whole series. But it has that same kind of essence of like the stakes are kind of low, the world is kind of warm and fun, and like things tend to always work out. We're not tend to like see conflict for the sake of conflict. That was something that I was really worried about the beginning of the show when I was watching it. I was terrified that it was going to do that thing where it's just like, oh my god, the main character loves the girl so much. Is this going to be like a love story about like how he loves her so much and he keeps misreading how like she may like him too, but she just is nervous, and then this whole weird conflict for conflict's sake constantly that we've seen everywhere, where it's just dumb communication issues that are the worst. And it's just like so frustrating to watch this person eat a wall for 6 times. In reality, it's just misunderstanding. It's like the worst conflict. I hate that so many shows do it. But this show does the opposite of that. If anything, you very much feel like it's you, the viewer, Komi, and our main character, and also his weird childhood friend, against the world kind of thing. Which is very fun as just a nice, cozy kind of like watch, you know? Anyways, Disastrous Life of Psyche K, it's very similar to... There's also this one show that's very charming, and I don't hear enough people talk about it. I don't know the name of it. It's right here. It's basically the same exact premise, except with a dude who's like really good at calligraphy. And he kind of has like this badass aura, and it's very much the inverse of this idea of like this dude who's very quiet, very to himself, thinks people hate him basically, and never thinks people like him at all. Meanwhile, everyone thinks he's the coolest person in the school because he's so focused, he's dedicated, all of these things. So it's very much that, and I feel like that's much more of the tone of consistency. Now, with that being said, though, I think Komi Can't Communicate does have I think it's with the art style that it portrays, with its subject matter of like everyone's kind of has their quirks and their weirdness, but doesn't mean people don't want the same things in life, which is like companionship, community, friendship, people that understand you, people that are interested in the same things that you're interested in, people that want to spend time with you. All of these things, I think that's something that is so innate to community, to human, tribal, whatever you want to call it. So needless to say, I think the show is very, very good. I think it's very, very fun. It's definitely a show that if you watch the first 2 episodes and you're like, I'm bored, I don't get it, you probably won't get it. It kind of just becomes more of the same. I will say the show does do a pretty excellent job about growing with the thing. Like with these kinds of shows, it oftentimes feels like they're trapped in limbo where they're not making progression ever. No, this show does a really good job. But like, actually, she keeps making more friends, and the main character and them start to develop in a kind of a way, which is lovely. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's the best sell that I can possibly tell you about the generality of the show. Again, it's on Netflix, which most people have access to. Also, there's many other places to get it. Some that you might have to wear a peg leg and an eye patch with, but you can watch them. But anyways, point being, very, very good show. I would highly suggest it. And now let's get on to the most specific minutia that I want to talk to you guys about. Okay, Komi can't communicate, man. One of the things that I was super shocked by, and I probably should have put this in the video in the part where we're talking to people who are just maybe on the fence about it, but the thing that I was blown away at is how weird this show is. I was drastically under the impression that this was just going to be like a really soft slice of life, kind of like I don't know, there's something like it's weird. There's something so docile about like Japan manga anime, but at the same time it's like subliminally, and not even subliminally sometimes, just hypersexualized, right? It's kind of like this weird toss-up of like, people are very polite, things tend to not be said in a gratuitous way. If it is, it's hella subliminal, and then it's shown in like the most precarious situations you've ever seen. Anyways, but this show surprised the shit out of me because it has like, it's the opposite. It's like very polite and tidy on the surface, but and maybe it's just because I watched the English dub, they go hard in the paint. They straight. It's like the dialogue and the goofiness is straight up R-rated at times. Like his main best friend, which is like the friend of every friend, which I'm really hoping they do a moment that makes like it makes sense a little bit more, because it kind of does feel a little weird that like his childhood friend that's childhood friends with everybody. It kind of makes it feel maybe a little bit less special, and I would have loved to see a moment, hopefully in season 2 we'll get that, where the main character and his childhood friend, the pink-haired girl, got gender fluid, whatever the hell it is, where his childhood friend explains like why, like maybe that, like, yeah, I have a lot of childhood friends, but like you're still my childhood best friend, because it does seem like they spend more time together and whatnot, but that may just be because of Komi's situation. But I would think that'd be charming if they showed like, no, you're my boy. You're my boy, Blue. All right, as much as that we have a lot of friends here, childhood friends, you are the childhood friend, the one that actually got to me, the one that actually is special. And it'd be really cool to see her kind of fight against his perception of being like, kind of like, I'm just a nobody. I'm just an ordinary nobody kind of guy. And for her to be like, no, you're my best friend because you're this like, you have an innate, stupid, silly talent to like pick up on everybody's pain, weirdness, oddity, and you kind of account for that and mend yourself around it to where people kind of end up on top or end up in a better way. Kind of to be this like weirdly magnetic force to pull people in the right direction or nudge people in the direction of truly being able to understand others. I guess that's a good way to put it. The guy kind of like lets people have a lens into what they're actually feeling. Kind of like a therapist almost, a person who's able to kind of cut past the bullshit of what they may be saying, the confusion around their actions, and kind of perceive everything and be like, okay, no, this is what I think they're trying to say, and then for them to actually be on like the same level of understanding about what's going on, and not like escalating or de-escalating, but staying on the actual truest form of the communication that's the best. Anyways, tangent aside, what I was saying beforehand was just that this show, him and his childhood friend, the reason why I brought her up is because there's this part in episode 1 where like he's saying, it's again, I think the whole point is that they made this really charming character that you can't place, basically, like they're unplaceable. Like, are they feminine? Are they masculine? Are they charismatic? Are they weird? Are they like, they're kind of like the embodiment of everything, kind of like completely fluid, essentially. Anyways, they make this joke about how she's like, was a boy in junior high, or weared boy clothes, I should say, in junior high, but then in high school decided to wear like a female skirt and whatnot. And anyways, it escalates, and she says that like, oh my god, I'm wet or something like that. And of course, I'm sitting there watching this being like, whoa. Oh, and it's clearly just a fast joke. They move on. And I'm not sure if it's just like they gave a lot of liberty to the dub team for Netflix or whatnot, to where they're like, no, like, you know, we want this version, like we want the things in the show to kind of correlate and translate into whatever the Western ideas would be. So she says something pretty absurd here that would like get your attention. And in American people are just like, yeah, we have no problem being gratuitous, like vocally. Here we go, and they just spit out some nonsense. And there's a lot of moments throughout the show where, like, again, in I think episode 2 or 3, the main character literally gets kidnapped and like threatened with death, and it doesn't feel like anime quirkiness where it's just like, yeah, right, the girl's like, it's just playing into the yandere aesthetic. No, she literally like fucking chloroforms his ass, and also that would, by the way, chloroform does not work that way. Found that out a couple days ago. Yeah, I remember seeing something about that, like where chloroform is actually a lie. Anyways, like it takes like 5 minutes or something to knock someone out. Dude gets kidnapped. Dude handles it like with reality of him being like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. Like the main character feels really a lot of the time like real, and the way that he's kind of reacting of like in anime, again, it's like the super disembodied perception of reaction where it's just like, it's almost like for the sake of the meme, for the sake of the joke, the characters are kind of reacting in an inhuman way. Whereas a lot of the time, at least in a lot of the instances, the main character at least, it tends to be like, this is scary, this is fucked up, but of course they still have the anime thing where like Komi kind of just like, they walk out of there despite there was absolutely a terrifying crime, and if you were to get kidnapped, even if you were a dude, you'd be shitting your pants and be terrified for a long time, and all those things. Also, just a side profile, I'm curious about how you guys think about this specific thing. In that moment where he gets kidnapped, the girl like shits on him, like straight up drags him badly in front of Komi, and I was really hoping that Komi would be like fuck you, I don't want to be your friend because you're being a shitty person to someone who I know is kind and like caring and a good friend. And instead she was just kind of like, I choose who my friends are, and walks away. And I'm like, yeah, it was a moment where he could have said something, stuck up for the guy who was doing a lot for you. It's kind of anyways. But anyways, there is a moment in the thing where she's like, maybe I should just stop being your friend because you'll be in these bad situations. And I don't know, I just thought it was one of those moments where I was like, it would have been cool to see her be like, fuck you, bitch. Fuck you. How dare you treat my boy like this, you know what I mean? Maybe in season 2 we'll get something like that. But it all worked out, so of course that's like the classic thing. Now, with that being said though, on that topic of the relationship between Komi and the main guy, they actually do a really good job about this, to where like most of the time in these shows, it is the most frustrating like thing ever. Like I'm really really fucking bent when it comes to like slice of life comedy shows that handle anything to do with romance, because it is like the most dumb, ignorant, frustrating shit you've ever seen in your life. Like it's just balls to the walls, insane, annoying when you see these characters make like the worst perception of things or completely misunderstand things. It very much feels like conflict for the sake of conflict, where they're like, how do we make these characters have like some sort of resistance, and then we mend them together at the end of the episode. And you see that all the time. You're kind of just like, man, why am I watching dummies all the time do relationship things, you know? But in this show, no, the main dude and them have a really good like communication thing where he talks about her interests, she talks about his interests, vice versa. She helps him when she can, all of these things. And also it does this really cool thing about, like, to me, one of the best parts of the show is that they actually have this narrator who kind of like facilitates the like no communication based by Komi. And in these shows specifically, comedy, kind of like romance, slice of life, whatever you want to call it, there's always this thing where like the main character tends, in my opinion, to go out of his way to do XYZ, and then for there to be like limited reaction to them doing XYZ. And then there's vice versa, and like the harem archetype of shows, it's like usually like the girls going out of their way to do things for the dude, and the dude's like, I got plenty of bitches, leave me alone, or whatever, right? Horrible. Anyways, but when it comes to Komi Can't Communicate, they do a really good job about like this main character going out of his way to kind of like help her, explain things to her. You know, she's like her first friend and all of these things, to where no, Kokomi like fully recognizes how like kind that is, and how like a person went out of their way to be there for her and to help her, and to where the main character is still still stuck in the like, she's perfect, she wouldn't like me, but it's very charming and wholesome to see Kokomi actually be like, this dude's like the best. Like, I like this person a lot. And then the moments where you see her like interact with her family or get excited, it very much reminded me like the kind of like wholesomeness to relationships very reminded me of A Silent Voice, except without the like the underlying preconceived notion of depression, essentially, and like suicide. Great movie, love it a bit, but yeah, but the idea of like being so excited to see somebody so excited, where like there's moments where he gave her like a charm and she like lost her shit, got super like jolly about it. Moments like that are like wholesome, and it's rare in those shows to kind of do, because it's always so much conflict, like, oh, but there's this third heroine, oh my god, now there's this conflict, and all you ever see is how she's always depressed about this person taking time away from the, or no, she's seen him in this precarious situation, conflict, and then it's just nothing but like exhausted emotions in a fucking slice of life show because of anxiety of misunderstanding, I guess, which is funny because this show handles that subject matter beautifully in like a non-anxious way. It kind of embodies the playfulness of how everyone's kind of flawed and everyone has these excess negative traits of perceiving things in a horrible light, like I shouldn't have said that when you're trying to sleep at night, thinking about all the ways you may be fucked up, and all those things, which again is like one of the strongest things about the show, is just its charm. I think just generally its charm. Yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it. But as far as we talked about the relationship thing, I thought that was dope. The characters are really unique. I think again, they're like, the show is very much like The Disastrous Life of Psyche K, where it's like it is made part and part by the weirdness of the characters and the fact that they're so perfect to what they do. You know what I mean? And it very much feels like there was. Yeah, it feels like there was inspiration by Psyche K, or maybe vice versa, because I have no idea what came first. But like in The Disastrous Life of Psyche K, there's also like this super hellbound, competitive, fiery dude, which exactly is in the show. There's like Nendo or whatever, who's a super like goofy friend, but he's really loyal and he's kind of pretty good too. And then the same thing is like, yeah, it's literally the inverse. There's like the weird, like stuck in the past, cringe, anime loving friend, whatever it is, edgelord friend, etc. Like there's plenty of those weird types, and that 100% exists within the show, except it's just less like psychic powers, bro. Over 9,000 weirdness. So, needless to say, me gushing about the show aside, what do you guys think we're gonna get in season 2, or what do you guys hope that we'll get in season 2? I'm actually curious about that. What do you guys want? Because for me, there was this moment that they had in the show where they talked about Komi's family. Like the family went to like this grandma's house, and the grandma's like this like fortune teller, wisdom giver kind of person, and she talks to Komi, and she's like, you're having friends, that's awesome. I would really love it if season 2 the main character goes in some part and interacts with the family. I hope he fucking pops off, because he literally, like as much as it makes sense, like that's the whole underlying thing that's really well done as well, that gives people who are like really enjoying the romance aspect of the show, like the Komi and the main character developing, is that like literally it seems like that's the pendulum that always swings with this weird family, where like there's these really hyper perfect attractive like genome genes, but they're nerfed by their horrible extroversion, like just not being able to communicate, horrible communication skills, etc. And then they finally meet the extrovert. It's like the introvert meets the extrovert big time, and the extrovert kind of cuts through their bullshit, and eventually kind of like understands them and unravels them. And they mentioned like a one-off comment where the dad was like super handsome despite just wearing glasses and having like a weird comb over or whatever. But apparently in the land of anime land, gorgeous or something. Point being is that seems to always be the pendulum. So you're like, oh, okay, Komi is just like her dad, and the main character is just like her mom, which is like this super bubbly, extroverted kind of talking thing. Except not really extroverted. But I am curious because it does seem like the main dude is more than even the mom or the sister of the mom are. So like they're the bubbly extroverted type, where it seems like the main character is not really an extrovert, but he's just like, he has an ungodly, unparalleled talent to kind of like read through people, almost like understand them completely based on their actions. So I would love to see a moment where like the main character and Komi, like the main character's eating dinner with Komi's family, and maybe they're like trying to communicate, and the dude somehow is like parsing together conversations between Komi and her brother and Komi both like completely lost, but also like enthralled with having this much communication that's kind of being inferred by this one dude, and then her brother kind of being like, why the fuck are you knowing what I'm thinking? Like, what the shit is happening? And then maybe for the dad to be getting an attitude, like, why are you so close to my daughter? Only for then the main character to start doing the same thing to them and, like, mind melding their belief and thought about what's happening in the current moment. And then for the dad to be like, this was actually a lovely dinner. Like, we got pretty far. We unraveled a lot of things about each other. This is great. And, of course, the mom is probably going to like him because the mom's just like, he can talk to me. We communicate good, you know? So to me, I would love to see those moments of like him interacting with that. I think they probably will pace it out a little better though. I think they'll probably like have moments where he somehow interacts with the little brother, because the little brother, Kokomi's little brother, it seems like he has the same gene of like, I'm people love me. I'm super attractive. I'm super interesting just by nature. I got like 16 guardian angels. Just keep making everything work out for me, essentially. But that doesn't mean I'm not anxious as hell. But it would be cool to see the main character kind of interact with their little brother, and then for him to be like, this is like my friend, and then to only realize that it's actually her sister's friend, a person pursuing her sister, and there being maybe a little bit of conflict there, though. But man, if there's one thing that I think this show, if I could beg that it doesn't go this way, which it's a manga, it's already set in stone. I'm sure the manga's also lovely. I'm sure you guys already have answers to where the show goes. But one thing that I would hope is the show does something beautiful with conflict, in the sense that it feels like there's not that much like conflict that we've seen everywhere else. It seems like the conflict is derived from people like pushing past their preconceived limitations, based on the mental barriers that they put in place for themselves, or by their upbringing or whatever. But yeah, these kind of like preconceived barriers that they're constantly pushing and actually making ground in. Again, that was the one thing that like I was shocked, but by season 2, a lot of the characters make huge ground. The main character is incredibly friendly with just about everybody in the class, despite being like very, very known that he's like Kokomi's right-hand man. Kokomi has a shit ton more friends now and is now, slowly but surely communicating. It'd be cool to see her start to communicate a little bit more, because right now it's still very like, I mean, that's a charming part of the show though, where it's like you get to hear the beautiful voice of the other voice actors kind of give essence and soul to the person's voice, I guess, if that makes any sense. So like the main character reading what Kokomi says in a very soft and gentle and like clean way. That almost makes it feel weird. It's like an interesting art piece, I guess, like a different way it makes you feel. But what do you call it? The person who has like 1,000 friends, they are the one that I'm actually really curious to see, because they're the one that seems pretty untouched, and they're very much making that person feel like the ultimate Omega person, with exception to like maybe being a bit eccentric. Yeah, like the main person who's like the childhood friend of all childhood friends. They seem like, yeah, like they're kind of bulletproof, and I'm not sure if I like that. Like it almost seemed like maybe their whole thing is that like they're completely fluid, and that could be, maybe they'll draw like attention to how that could be a mental struggle for them, because it does feel like they are the weird glue that is kind of like the perfect antithesis of what character should be. And I guess not though. I guess like they have their like faults, but it doesn't seem like their faults that's what I mean. Their faults don't seem to get resolved or get improved. Like the one friend of all friends person tends to make like choices that overestimate her overestimate her ability. So like she has to call on her friends to come help deliver papers, or she ends up constantly pulling her friends in to do these weird schemes or gimmicks or whatever. But ultimately, she doesn't seem like she's changed from the first part to the last part. Besides maybe like slightly understanding Kokomi more in the first 2 episodes, So it'd be cool to see where she has a weakness and how they are going to improve that weakness, because she definitely feels like the most unstoppable person there. And of course the other ones make kind of ground. I guess we're in a slow pace, but the main character also makes hella ground, where again he seems like he's a fish out of water, where like he's a loner, and then because he's the student council president, I guess he has to interact with everyone, therefore he starts to kind of make connections with everybody, and not like super strong connections like the childhood friend one, who is amazing at that, but just enough to where people kind of like accept him as a core like fundamental point of the the ecosystem, I guess, of the group, of the tribe. So they make good ground there, and I guess everyone makes a little bit of ground, but not quite as much as Komi and the main character. But it would be cool to see if like if they keep bridging on that, of like how each character keeps making fundamental jumps. And drastically getting better, because yeah, that's like the best part of the show, is that it actually feels like there's little conflict, or if there is conflict, it's not like conflict that you've seen to death and is boring and is like frustrating and it gives you anxiety. It's almost just like you want to see this person get past this limitation, I guess. And sometimes people relate to it a lot, and like they're like, holy shit, I feel that so deep. And then other people kind of just like, oh, I'm so happy that this person is just improving, you know, like taking a step in the right direction every day, even if it's a small one, is still substantial, you know. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hearing me ramble about a show that I very much enjoyed. It's on Netflix. It's super bingeable. I was looking for a show in the midst. Also, big shout out to Lone Syndicate. Thank you so much for suggesting me this. By the way, guys, we stream it constantly over on the channel, on Twitch and everything. We do both. And over there, Lone Syndicate told me to watch the show because he watched it and thought it was quite charming. And I was like, hell yeah, dude, I'll give it a try. I watched it and I was like, dude, this show is charming. This is exactly what I needed right now. Is in between shows. I just finished watching like an actual TV show that was hella a conflict, and like I'm fucking emotionally exhausted by watching it. Also, Attack on Titan's going out right now. So yeah, I feel like we all need a show like this just to recover, to have like a respite of the emotional nonsense that exists within other shows. But I would highly suggest it. I think it's very cute, very fun. I cannot wait for season 2. I'll probably talk you guys' ear off about season 2 as well. But with its success and all of those things, I would say this is a show that if you like, I would be hard pressed to not find that we get more and more of it. Because yeah, it very much feels like a show that had great ratings, great reception, deals with subject matter that I think a lot of people could relate to, and it just generally perceived really, really well. I think there's a ton of source material about that, but for those guys who are up to date on the manga, give me some little drip feeds about where we're going to be going within the story, what kind of things that we're going to be fighting. I would love to actually, if you guys could do that in the comments, for people who made it this far, who are already tanks amongst tanks. Could you tell me what the manga... what season 2 might have in store for us? Just some teases. Nothing too spoilery, but just some little bits. I would appreciate that. I always talk to you guys about the shows that I'm watching, and I try to see if you guys are engaged or interested in them in any way. And if you are, then go check them out and go watch them. But yes, we do this constantly on the channel. Hopefully I can see you again. We cover a lot of video game stuff here as well. Sorry about that. Kind of a scattered shot thing. But thank you so much for your time. We stream a lot too. Hopefully I can see you there. Talk to me about anything and everything over there. I'd appreciate it. Thank you again for your time, and goodbye.